Hey guys, if you love QF's content on our free Sundays and Thursday sessions, then please visit our Patreon page in the description and sub to the Black Kluge tier or higher for full access to not only our bonus weekly Tuesday night shows and the alternate Sunday shows you've been missing, but also to the exclusive episodes not available to the lower tiers. It's roughly the price of one coffee a month, and nobody at Starbucks will make you laugh like we do for that kind of scratch. In addition, when you sub to the Black Kluge tier, you'll get 2 weeks advance access to each Thursday session on Patreon before it makes it to YouTube.
Would you consider yourself a savant? Because that's
No.
as a lead singer, do you get resentful that you have to put this amount of work in? I mean, your voice is really key. I mean, your voice is still deep, and you know to hold on to that and all the physicality of it. Do you get resentful? Is it that,
No.
Does it, Steve or Marty, have you ever said to one another, look, you did something on stage the other night where we were, mocking each other, putting each other down, but that one hurt, and can you back off?
No, never would.
Never. The movie Dumb and Dumber. I have heard that Marty turned down a role in Dumb and Dumber, the famous Jim Carrey movie, and Steve, you were the original guy for Dumb and Dumber, that they actually offered it to you.
First of all, that's not true.
At all?
It's not true at all. I had never heard of Dumb and Dumber until it came out.
Oh.
And
Did you when your mother has the history she has, did you worry as a kid growing up that maybe I'm crazy? Did you start to think any time I could lose my mind? You didn't.
No. We got to go to one of those places.
Oh, and you went.
And we went.
Was it freaky for you because you are so famous and
No, it didn't matter.
Yeah. So you mean you almost lost Barbara from the drinking, and she sat you down and said, "Bring."
No, she didn't sit me down. We both had a moment of clarity.
And you had to work, and I guess your father said, "Hey,
not my father. He left when I was 3.
Oh, did he? Yeah, but also I thought the history was that you felt when those 3 guys were all together, they had bonded somehow.
No, that was the White Album.
But Gene, you never went looking. You never, when you got famous and you become this big success, world touring band, 100 million albums sold, the whole thing. The old man didn't try to, let me go find Gene. I don't know. I always thought Man Rock was about your father, not about you.
It isn't.
You started out, your father was abusive.
It was not abusive.
He called you names. I read you even shit in front of these guys. It was just there was no even private bathroom on this thing, right?
No, I didn't. Who said that?
Oh, okay.
No, I peed. There was a bathroom that we'd use, but
really not.
You do therapy?
No.
Never?
I've dabbled.
I'm there every day. Who are you hanging with these days? You hang out with any famous people like McCartney or Mick Jagger at all?
Welcome, ladies and gents, to QF, a podcast about Howard Stern. I'm your gravelly throated lead podcast host on this one, Jim Fix, a.k.a. Fillmore. And with me for part 2 of 3-Card Shuli is Mr. Len Young. How are you today, sir?
Great. Apart from the football last night, I'm doing great.
Yeah. Well, Liverpool lost to PSG in the second leg of the Champions League and in the knockout rounds of the round of 16, and they played well. So that it was hard to discount the performance comparatively compared to the first leg, but it is didn't
deserve to go through.
No, they didn't. But to get knocked out in that early in the competition seems a little wrong.
Yeah, we've another chance at silverware on Sunday, so let's just move forward.
Yeah. Maybe they'll still get a chance to get a double out of it. Yeah. The league's almost sewn up. Anyway, guys, where we left off, Shuli was just bragging about his 6 listeners that he had at this point in time, and Rudrani was doing her best to really pump him up, and it's almost like that guy at the beginning of the Kiss concert. You wanted the best, you got the best, and they come out. Gene's in a wheelchair.
So I'm very grateful for it. But I think, like with anything, people grow, people change,
Sure.
and things change. And I think the pandemic changed a lot about him. which in turn changed the show. And for me, it changed my feelings towards the show. As far as the people that I work with for years and years over there, I got no issue with any of them. It was very important for me as a fan for so many years and a listener and an employee. I know the history of people leaving there.
Yeah, you don't have any issue with them. However, they may have a lot of issues with you, shithead.
Yeah, it's not reciprocated.
It's not. And I mean, the fact is he started his show and he couldn't really get he did get a couple of the Howard TV guys once and then never again. And he got Grillo maybe once and Stuttering. I don't think he got Stuttering John. I don't think he did anything with him just that at that point. He got Cumia. That did fairly well for him, but then it went back to his typical 500, views per video and stuff. He really couldn't get anything. He got Sparks one time that did about 1,000 hits. That was it.
Who the fuck is Sparks?
Oh, comedy. You know about in comedy, Sparks?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I think he did get, you got the Howard TV guys, but he never got, Gary, no. He never got any of the Back Office Radio guys or John Hine or any of them. None. Now, I assume that anyone who's currently on the show was told you don't go on any other pod, because none of them have gone anywhere else. Have they?
None. Oh, there's no synergy even on Sirius, as far as I know. Gary never did. Let's say Jim Roberts and Jim Norton and Sam Roberts.
Yeah.
And that would make sense. But Jim was affiliated with Opie and Anthony, so that doesn't surprise me. But no Bennington, nothing.
But it seems that anyone who's had any even mild connection with the show, when they do appear anywhere else, it seems like they're NDA'd up the wazoo. I mean, Scott the engineer did a few appearances, and he can't discuss anything. So obviously the terms of his leaving, he must have signed something, and no one ever dishes anything. So
generally they don't. You really have to work the interview end of it to get good stuff out of them. And I know I'm still working on a couple actually, but the one I really wanted was Tracy Millman, and we were corresponding for a while. But then that was during the due to a number of reasons, vacations, and then suddenly, we get in touch with you when we get back. It never happened, and I still would love to, but apparently she's gone completely underground now. Doesn't even check her Twitter, her Instagram. I don't think she uses much, and I think she's just finally come to the conclusion it's not worth my time, and it's just not worth it. And I don't blame her. I hope she changes her mind in the future, but you never know.
Like, unless you have a relaxed grinder, I don't see why you would want to do that, because ultimately it's probably just going to be bad. You're probably just going to get some kind of pushback or kickback from. But they do have NDAs. They have to film on.
No, they don't. A lot of them don't. A lot of them just fear litigation from him, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because as far as I know, they didn't sign any NDAs, and it's just one of those things where, I can get a hold of somebody and they can keep them out of the business. I don't think he has that power anymore.
Probably not.
No.
It's the plane never lands safely. Let's just say that. It goes into the side of the mountain a lot of the times. No matter how you want to leave, a clean exit, a friendly exit is not easy there for whatever reason.
I wonder if he's referencing the Marcy Turk land the plane.
Land the plane. That's what I was thinking too.
Because at that point, we hadn't done the interview with Richie Wilson. And when he released, actually, we might have. No, we didn't. This was early on. And Richie let that slip. And until Richie said that, we'd never heard that term before for this, or in terms of the Stern Show.
It's the type of, if I was on a work call and someone said that to me, I'd just give them a withering, like, what kind of an expression is that? Land the plane. It's like, just talk like a normal fucking human being. Like all these, like, let's run it up the flagpole. And, like a lot of these expressions would make you nauseous.
If Marcy Turk had said that to me, I would have said something like, climb into my asshole. Honestly, that's not even corporate speak. That's corporate. I failed at corporate America speak. So corporate culture. So fuck. Oh God, land the plane, crash the plane now.
My thing was.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll land the plane, Lockerbie style.
Once I kind of made the decision that I want to move on from the show, that I wanted try and do my own thing. I just remember thinking, I don't want to leave on a bad note. And my issue isn't with him at all. You know, there was a new management in place that I was always butting heads with because, like I said, I don't like bullies. I don't care what your freaking label is because I'm not from your corporate world. I write dick jokes. So that's my fallback plan.
I love he's all Rambo now. And I hated her so much I stayed another 7 years.
Exactly. You know,
someone like this is who that's why I said Tracy Millman would have been great because she and High Pitch Mike left the Stern Show without jobs. That's how much they hated it there after Marcy got in there.
Wow, yeah, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, and God only knows what they did in the interim looking for work, you know. But if it was that bad to leave, I imagine it was just as bad for anybody else. But they had more like economical concerns, so they couldn't afford to really, and they said, well, fuck it, we're kind of stuck here until we find something. It doesn't behoove us to just lose money instantly like that.
Yeah. And you know, this does kind of circle back to the Scientology link here. You can't leave Scientology without a lot, like apparently the only way to leave Scientology without getting disconnected or getting there's a term for it where you're declared an SP, a suppressive person. Mm-hmm. You route out to leave the church in good standing, and it involves basically sitting on a lie detector machine for hours on end, confessing everything. I think with Howard, you've got a very mild version of that, where what he will try to do when people leave is degrade them enough, and also give them a hint of a threat, like you were saying earlier, to make them feel, you know, I better not say a word about any of the stuff here that is not intended for their audience, surely.
Well, yeah. I mean, with Scientology, I mean, it's like Donnie Brasco. In this life, you go in to see your friends, and you come out dead, and it is your best friend that does it to you. In the Howard Stern Show, you go out penniless, you stay penniless, you know, manage to eke out a living somewhere if you're lucky, or, you know, go on to something else. Now, Doug Goodstein actually just put on his, I think it was Facebook, that he got a job as an adjunct professor at Hofstra University. Wow. So, yeah, and I maybe it's college, guys. Forgive me, I'm not American. We determine the difference between college and university. You guys don't. But he as an adjunct professor, and I thought for sure the interviews for him, the option of an interview with him is gone. But no, he contacted me about a week ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So that might be that's still up in the air. But again, he was a little flaky the last time I tried to get a hold of him to nail him down for a pre-interview kind of thing. And but you know, maybe there's still some hope there. I'd love to interview him because he was in the trenches, and he was one of the few that actually gave Howard shit on the air.
Well, he was there during the really kind of, I suppose, the what you would call a good period, a very funny period. And there was a lot of things around, you know, the Howard TV were involved in a lot of the stuff that spilled onto the air by just doing their jobs, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Gary falling asleep.
I love that one.
Artie nodding off, whether to put that on the air or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. It'd be a really interesting interview.
And he managed Beetlejuice. I mean, the stories.
Oh my God!
Fucking hell! No, sorry. He managed.
Oh no, it was the Hank.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. I'm thinking wrong midget. But God bless him.
So you're not going to scare me with your executive vice president bullshit. I don't care. You put on your pants the same way I do. You take a dump like I do. You're just like me. So you're not going to.
This is Longshoreman Shuli trying to stamp on his authority.
It's just like, yeah, he's like, this is a few lines from Predator, like Jesse Ventura. Ain't got time to bleed.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, I always tell people all the time, there's only two women I fear. One I came out of, and one I'm dying to get back into as soon as this interview's over. Those are the only two women I'm afraid of. Nobody else.
Oh my God! Would you please come to Nashville? We've got a lovely place. It's like 3 minutes down the road from me.
Yeah, no, I'm supposed to be getting a date for Zanies out in Nashville. So
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, as soon as I get it.
Plug for Zanies, by the way.
Yeah, which is, you know, so
Google our headliner tonight. I was thinking about this just the other day, about Shuli and his stand-up comedy career, right? Like, what does it entail? When these guys what do all these guys, what's their arc? It used to be get on the Tonight Show, be successful, get invited to the couch, get your own sitcom. That used to be the old template, you know. Drew Carey, Ellen eventually got hers, you know, Seinfeld, of course. Loads of people went on to sign sitcom, you know, hell or heaven, depending on how well they did from there. But then later on, it was, you know, it's podcasts, it's people doing the rounds, like Bill Burr. Bill Burr just toured and toured and toured, and eventually people caught up to how good he was.
Yeah, definitely.
So Shuli not getting any traction, especially from the Stern Show. Like, that's more of an indictment on the Stern Show as much as it is for Shuli's talent or Shuli's visibility level, his Q rating, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because you're trying to figure out, you know, because he isn't funny.
No.
But there's a lot of unfunny comedians who are very successful from having the right kind of exposure and a bit of luck. But also, it makes you think, well, how many people are actually listening? How many? If he was to leave, he left that show within weeks, was doing his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers he had were so low. I think they might have been quite big for a few days. Were they? I think you were saying they were.
Not really. The first episode probably did the best for him for a good 9 months until he got into the Stuttering John thing. Because I think it took about 9 months before he stumbled across that scam. And then, but up until then, every show was, you know, not even kissing 600 and 700 views.
And there was I don't think he did a live stream, did he?
No, not that I know of. And he did have a Patreon, but again, I don't know how many people paid for it or cared about it. However, I'll give you an example. The Stern Show has its own channel, as like everybody else does. It's their own network, the Stern Network. And there's a video from I'm going to say a year ago, Bowie and Chris Wilding and something else. It's a short clip. It still only has 90,000 views.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
That's nothing comparatively, like compared to what you could find an Artie clip involving, I don't know, Crazy Alice that has 500,000 on some fly-by-night channel.
Yeah, but look, Howard took that, played the weak hand, which he thought he was going to win, which was, I'm going to pivot, I'm going to stick my tongue up every celebrity's ass who comes in here rather than being honest and trashing them. I'm going to cozy up to the left, and all my political views will be on the left, which is all bullshit. And it just hasn't worked. You sent me a link the other day, it was really funny. It was a video of Howard interviewing, or Letterman interviewing Howard from the 80s. Yeah. And the comments, every single one. It's so funny because it's so political with everyone. Everyone's like liberal
asshole.
Asshole, yeah. And I can't help but think that like a huge amount of Stern's audience in the 90s, 80s, 90s were made up of people who were conservative views. And Howard was certainly someone who, look, he said he wanted to carpet bomb the Middle East. He carries a gun. He wanted to some of the things that he was, he was running for governor and all that.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people
very pro law enforcement.
Yeah. So I just think that he took a gamble. It didn't pay off. And a lot of those people just look at him now and think you're an absolute sellout. Like you're the greatest phony in the history of radio.
Well, and, what bothers me is those people, those very same people, whatever, I guess it's the conservatives. They figured the only reason they dropped him was because of his politics, as opposed to him being a sellout for decades earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the celebrity thing is a big sellout.
Well, yeah, of course. And I mean, the fact is, he gambled on Hillary. it didn't pay off, and then he decided, like, because and I understand it. If you're going to interview all these, unless you want to interview Kid Rock and Ted Nugent for the rest of your life, 7 times a year, you're not going to get some of these other celebs, just because even they will base whatever they junket they go on, they'll base who they see on the politics as well. They're not going to go on a Fox show. That I get that part of it too, but there had to be a way to get everybody without disclosing your politics whatsoever.
Yeah, but he made the decision not to do that because he thought, I need to make this studio a safe space for celebrities to come in and sit for 2.5 hours while I ream them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While I rim them, sorry. and one way of doing that, a very cheap, easy way of doing that, without having to appear like I'm kind of thoughtful and sympathetic and empathetic character, is to just say, I hate Donald Trump, or I hate whoever the right, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think he went with that cheap angle because he just thought that's the quickest way for me to endear myself to the Hollywood set.
Yeah.
And I suppose it kind of worked, didn't it? To a degree.
I guess it did, but every single one of them would say, yeah, but didn't you have him on about 20 times before this?
Yeah, you were high-fiving him when he was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you loved him.
Yeah.
So that's why I found it hypocritical. Like, I'm not going to have him on. You had him on forever. Have him on again. What's the difference?
Yeah, he should have had him on again.
Yeah.
Stern's a coward. That's the reason why. He's a complete coward.
Yeah, and Shuli's no less cowardly based on what he's been talking about, even though, he's side by side with Arnold Schwarzenegger taking on, as you said, the Predator.
I love
Marcy
this.
Turk.
I love this version of Shuli, which is the kind of hagiography. This is the kind of alternative history of the world by Shuli, and he's literally like, the way look at his face there. It's like he's sitting atop a white horse waving at his people while he's riding back from war. You know, having won and slain the giant.
Yeah, he's Caligula after slaying Neptune.
It's a whole nother story. Is now I'm in an area of the country where nobody has seen or heard my stand-up. And, I love coming into a show or a situation where you're the question mark, where I'm the dark horse, right? Where nobody knows.
Which is all across the country and the world. This is the other thing. He's indicted himself. I'm going to a part of the country which I'm a question mark. Don't you know YouTube's been around for about 13 years at this point?
Oh, this is great.
Yeah.
There's anything about that they're not expecting much. That's a great position to be in life. When people aren't expecting much from you and you're good at what you do, like when they're not expecting much from you and you're decent, they're like, wow, this guy's good. They don't see it as decent because they're impressed. So imagine if you're really good at what you do and you just sit there.
Or as more likely the case, what if they don't know anything about you and you're fucking awful?
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible. The gymnastics here are, it's actually really impressive. It reminds me of at the end of Spinal Tap when their tour fails and the band splits up and they try to put a kind of silver cloud on, because, we get a chance now to do our other projects. I envy us. I think we're lucky. We're really lucky now.
Did you? Oh God, I'll have to show it to you some other time. Again, I'm going to reference SCTV. Well, this guy goes on the show, and they had Ben Vereen on as a guest star, and he outshines the comic Eugene, played by Eugene Levy. So he decides to retire from show business and go to a farm, and he's by himself. And they interview him and say, "What happened? What do you feel about living here?" He goes, "Well, I don't have an audience. The pigs, the horses, they're my audience. I don't. I needed a break. And then he asked, "You guys want to stay over for the weekend? We got lots of space." He misses the limelight.
And sit there, and then your moment comes and you crack it over the wall. People are blown away. People are fans forever. They feel
like they discovered you, is a funny thing. Have you noticed? You've been at it a long time and then suddenly you pop.
Well, I've always said I'm the best kept secret in show business. I say it to myself in the shower crying, but I say it. So we fought,
That's fantastic. I couldn't invent that silence if I wanted to.
That was a beauty.
Give me 1 sec. I'm going to see if I can get my drops in. Like, I have a bunch of Shuli drops and just see which ones I can use for this. Hold on, Shuli. All right, there we go. Let's move it over here. All right, back
Shuli
in there.
Robin fat cunt.
Oh, Shuli. Well, let's see.
I always thought that Robin was a big, fat, smelly, useless cunt.
Okay.
Touche.
My wife hates me. My kids hate me. My comedy sucks dick. Shalom, biatch.
My favorite is the Pat Cooper joke.
Pat Cooper is so irrelevant. When he gets on the subway headed to Queens, he starts screaming at people, and they think he's some crazy old fucking don't recognize him. So he thinks that. Hold on, there's a punchline coming soon, guys.
Do you know what, dude? They have a new model that does that crowd Play HD.
Oh yeah,
they have a new language model that is fucking scary good. Like it's actually conversation. It sounds anyway. Listen, do you have the clip of Shuli at the roast at the joke I sent that time where he does the Pat Cooper?
I do somewhere. Hold on, let's see if I can find it.
And we can play Bob Levy's one as well, which is they bombed so hard at that.
Yeah. So here's a clip from the Pat Cooper roast. There's 2 clips. Let's go for it. They had Pat Cooper coming in. It was, I believe it was the last time he was in. And they had Sal, Reverend Bob, and Shuli go in and try to roast him, and they all bombed so fucking awful. We're going to go through that one time, me and Len, because it's just Pat annihilates them effortlessly.
He's like 88.
Pat hates Joan Rivers, but truth be told, Pat hates success, and you would too if Freddie Roman eclipsed you career-wise.
Oh,
but I think Pat.
He's saying
I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Listen to me. All you got to do is talk in Braille. What the fuck is he saying?
He's saying that Freddie Roman.
Pat hates.
Okay, and there's another one. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Here's another clip. Here's another clip, guys.
You're very influential in my life. In fact, I always play Pat's age in the Pick 3 Lotto game. So thank you for that. Do us all. You're very.
I just flew in from Secaucus, and boy, my arms tired. Oh, there's some of these old jokes that, like if you're Shuli, you just fucking thumb through a joke book and hope no one recognizes that from fucking 50 years ago. Yeah, but then there are those old masters that could easily do it. One of my favorites was Milton Berle. It was like the Tonight Show joke, but still pretty risque. He goes, every night Lucy would get up on stage and perform the Dance of the Virgins, which she performed from memory.
That's a good one.
But I mean, Shuli doesn't have that he doesn't have that charm. He doesn't have that delivery. It's you can tell he's bleeding in his mouth when he tells these jokes.
Yeah.
On the air a couple times. And I just, the show got very political. It was always every day was about COVID. And my wife and I stopped watching the news because I feel like that type of energy, it's just a blanket of fear that's just wrapped around you all day and all night. And you keep projecting that fear. And guess what? Scary shit start coming into your life. So for me, it was like I unplugged from the news. I said, if it's big, we'll get it on this stupid computer in our pocket. And we'll learn about it that way. But I'm not going to sit here and be a slave to it. I watched my dad do that for years. Like that was the only bonding time we had, is I wanted to stay up late. So I would watch the news with him. This was back in the 80s. And the news, they didn't give a shit back then. The first 37 minutes was just murder, death, arson, murder, death, arson.
And this is the one thing that is a cultural difference. Canadian news was not like that at all growing up, and it still isn't. To be honest, it's very balanced, and I imagine in Ireland it's much the same.
Well, to a degree. I mean, he does have a point there. I remember my father when I was younger. I remember my father would always be listening to the news, and 6 o'clock every evening, that would be watching the news, and the 1 o'clock news, and the radio was always on, and he used to follow it on. I remember him saying to me one time, he goes, you see they got a fella for that rape. I'm like, excuse me? And he goes, that poor woman that was raped there last week. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, "Did you not hear about it?" No. I said, "No." And like he's following all these things. He's listening to the radio all the time, you know.
Right.
And I don't know what benefit that brings into your life to be aware of all these things happening and all that, negativity. So I would tend to agree with Shuli here. But the thing as well is that you probably need to have some keep some awareness of what's happening in the world, to some degree. But you don't have to luxuriate in it.
No, I think if you marinate in about an hour reading the paper, news, just politics. Although politics is really irritating to watch these days, but it's not the same type of politics that for decades was pretty standard and boring. But that's what I wanted back then, boring. I just wanted the minutia of what's the latest bill to pass, what are the elections looking like, blah blah blah, controversy, and then whistleblower stuff fascinated me.
But I think the big they were always great.
And exposés, certain hit pieces, whatever, from reputable journalists, always up my alley, especially the Fifth Estate. But during this time, I don't doubt what he's saying he's being honest about that. But at the same time, Stern, it wasn't politics. It was personal politics. Him talking about wearing masks and the vaccine shit, which to me was not political, but they made it political. So, the other thing is with Howard in that Zoom template, there's no room for Shuli or anybody else. How often did you hear Gary in any given week in the last 5 years? Probably not often. Maybe once or twice a week. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Gary's getting 2 appearances, Shuli's not getting anything.
No, that's clearly what happened. It was, like I said before, it was that constructive dismissal. It was, we're not going to play this week, and we're not going to, because he'd probably say, look, I got this great voicemail from Underdog, and they go, well, we don't really have time. We got this new gay guy in who's really funny. He's got this bit called Lee King Snatch. We're going to go with that.
Yeah,
I'd say Shuli must have looked at that guy going, motherfucker. Yep. I'm sitting here for 15 years. I'm on the balls of my ass, and this guy sachets into the studio and straight sits into Howard's lap, and he's the top dog. I don't know if he still is, but
not so much during the breakdown. I mean, what we play is pretty much what you'll get. It says now we have the mandate where we don't cut the gay stuff anymore. Basically, we don't cover a whole lot of it. There was a while there was all scats, and then people were saying, "Guys, enough." And he's like, "Okay, we'll do it." Well, it made me laugh hysterically because I thought, okay, Howard's in the toilet where he loves to play and just grab shits and make like they're crayons, and he loves it.
Loves it.
Yeah, and he could watercolor with a turd before he'd, learn how to really snap a photo with that fucking dusty gear he's got. But did I tell you ages ago? I did find that link. It was his photography tutor, because he has a tutor for everything. Stern was this guy named Doug Gordon, and Doug Gordon got in trouble for plagiarizing images, basically.
Yeah, very easy to catch that. Use the old reverse Google image search.
Oh yes. Does it surprise you that somebody like Howard get taken in like that? Not me.
No, and look, Howard is ultimately trying to be something he forced something through, be something he isn't. I think with and look, the guy who got caught, this Gordon guy, he was obviously trying to be something he wasn't too. But I think with photography, there's an element of learning how the equipment works and understanding the difference between aperture and shutter speed and how the two can complement and counterbalance each other. But that you don't really need to sit in a class to learn all that stuff. You really just got to get out there and take a load of photos, experiment. That's what it's all about. And you just need to have an eye as well, which is something you can learn. So
no,
I don't.
The guy that needs to look at it one step before he steps off the curb, he's going to tell you what it looks like through the lens of his camera. No. He can't see his own hair on his head.
I always imagine like Stern has these hard drives with photos on them, and this one of them just has like Barnes written on it, and then the other one is like, what's on this one? Oh, don't touch that one.
Yeah.
He's got a few hard drives that he'd probably dispose of with a lump hammer, I'd say.
I'd say so, yeah, with a ball peen hammer or a set of blaze with Ralph's shoe boxes of Ralph's Christmas gear that Beth rescued from, Castle Gay Skull.
And here I am hanging out with my dad on his lap. No wonder I piss my bed every night going to sleep. I'd be terrified. But that's how I bonded with my dad, right? That was That was like, so I was done with the news. I was done with all that shit. I had no dog in this fight. My only concern was what's best for my family. And we got out here. I think it took them more. I know it took them longer to adjust than me, because I have that Israeli in me where it's like, when I'm done with you, it's gone. Like, it's like the Men in Black, you know, the whole pow, and you don't remember a thing. And that's how I felt with New York. I was like, other than the fact that I met my wife there, that we started a family there, those are the only memories that I'm taking with me.
So how awful, why would you stay that long in a fucking city at a shitty paying job, not barely getting ahead, having not made any connections in the city?
Yeah, you would think if you wanted to make it as a stand-up comedian, you are literally in the center of the universe. I mean, obviously, look, you've got LA as well.
Boston, I would say Boston, New York, LA. They're the triumvirate, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to make it in New York, and you're not going to schmooze, albeit I'm sure he did his best to schmooze, and I'm sure his personality and his utter laziness counted against him.
Oh, yeah, but look, this is a guy who went for lunch with Norm Macdonald. He had access to so many connected people, and said, nah, this isn't the place to be. I'm going to Kentucky, or where the fuck did you? Alabama.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, this had nothing to do. This was something that was foisted upon Shuli.
Oh, yeah.
Has to have been.
Yep.
Yeah.
Listen, I wasn't in a prison camp for 15 years, but you don't realize how crazy you were living till you live a different way for a little bit.
Well, I can relate to that. I was a film producer for years. And I can remember I got hooked on doing Advil PM.
Now she's Lauren Schuler Donner. I was a film producer. When she starts talking about it, she makes a reference here, something like we stole a shot, meaning they filmed illegally in some place, no permits, no nothing, indie filmmaking, grab the shot and leave. And but she has all these, I'm a healer, I'm a musician. You'll see on her Instagram she got songs. I was a producer. A Jill of all trades and a master of none, as they say. Yeah, just like Shuli.
Mm-hmm. And then the other one to wake me up. I can't even remember what it was. Etc. To wake up because of the caffeine. Because I'd have two shoots going on at the same time, and I can remember being in New York and we'd have to block the roads, for a scene, and we were stealing the scene.
Right.
And then LA was the same thing. I was never home in Nashville. When I bought this house, which was my second house, I moved everything in. I hadn't even put the other house on the market yet. And I flew out to LA and I was gone for like 14 days working on a job. And when I finally gave up that world, it was so wild the first time I didn't have to set my alarm.
Judging from her accoutrements, I'd say it took one whole truck for her earrings.
Well, what kind of movies were they making? That's what I want to know. I'm sure. Was it kind of Beverly Hills Cock or
Driving into Miss Daisy?
Yeah, Mr. Holland's Anus.
Porn titles used to make me laugh hysterically.
Oh yeah, great.
Oh God, like what was the like Braveheart on? Forrest Hump. All this shit.
Yeah, it's great.
The Shawshank Erection, all this shit.
But I bet
now I don't.
Like, okay, go ahead.
What kind of movies was like? I'd love to have seen some of these movies.
Don't even take an end. I don't take anything.
Well, that's the thing. Here I am in Alabama, and I have peace of mind in the home where we live. I don't have to worry about anything. We're in a great neighborhood. My kids have friends they can ride their bikes to. They can walk across the street and go play. All shit that they've never done as kids in New York.
Kids, by the way.
Thank you. And so the only place I didn't have peace of mind was work. I didn't enjoy it anymore. And I always said, this was my dream job. This was something that I dreamt about getting the opportunity to do. But the minute it felt like a job or I didn't enjoy it, I was going to leave.
That was okay. That's also bullshit. That's revisionist crap. It wasn't his dream to be wearing a mustard yellow jacket and reporting on High Pitch Eric's fucking shits. It was to be sitting in the Artie chair.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Let's not. I mean, let's not suck each other's dicks that much, Shuli. And the idea that just stuck it out. Anyway, I guess we're treading old ground. I'll continue it, but it was. Don't tell me you stayed 14 years on the show to occasionally be heard.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I have to say, you chose happiness. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, it's funny. I worked with a guy, one of the many. Yes, look at that. Timely plug.
Well, it is just a choice.
She showed her swag.
Wow.
God.
8 unopened boxes of it in the background.
No kidding. Yeah, I've got look, if once I get rid of these 499 CDs, I'll be set. And Shuli, I'm sure he's got some fucking Shalom Biatch swag buried in some boxes somewhere.
Kicking an old Shul.
Yeah.
That's what we used to have. We used to have T-shirts that said that. We got to get ourselves some T-shirts. I'm going to send a few over to you. Kicking it old Shul.
Kicking it old Shul. Shoes out for some.
and it really is, man. It really is. And it took me years to realize that, with the benefit of, my wife was the one who basically showed me a different way of living, because I grew up with Israeli parents, which is, there's no darker sea of negativity than those two. I mean, it's a race. It's a sprint to tell you bad news. That's how much these guys love sharing bad news.
So let me get this straight. Your wife turned you on to happiness, but you're using that energy to shit on a fucking drunkard when he releases a video and audio of himself, and charging people to have you make fun of him.
Well, you got to, like Shuli says, you got to surround yourself with positivity. So that's the key to life and happiness. So one way of doing that is to spend every day for 2 years making the same joke and shitting on, admittedly, a piece of shit himself,
right?
But also someone who is just an absolute mess.
Yeah, when you step on a turd, that turd sticks to your fucking shoe.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, Fillmore, if you step on a turd and a couple of idiots throw you a few quid for doing it, you'll step on another turd as well. And then you'll keep doing it as long as you keep getting the few coins getting thrown at you.
In the end result, you both smell like shit.
There's something they love about it. I mean, they identify with it. Oh, you think you've got it bad. Well, let me tell you something.
That's literally, it's like, I remember one conversation, I go, how you doing, Dad? Better than your cousin. He is in the hospital and needs intestinal surgery. And I'm like, does anything good happen next to you two ever? Ever. So it was the only place I didn't have peace of mind. And so I tried to work something out with management, and management was, I got the feeling that they didn't give a shit whether I stayed or left. And so for me, it was like, it came down to, do I leave and take a big chunk of money that's owed to me for 15 years worth of work?
So it goes from, I needed to leave, I needed to, my kids needed to be free to be kids. And now they didn't want me to stay.
Yeah.
He's like Howard. The truth eventually comes out of him. He's not smart enough to stay the course of the bullshit that he plans in the original salvo.
Exactly.
The other thing was,
it's like that, that, sorry to interrupt, that thing that if you'd be a terrible witness, because this is why certain people are told not to take the stand, because the more they talk, a skilled barrister is just waiting for them to contradict themselves, and that's what he's done within seconds.
Yeah, well, it didn't take too long. We're only half hour into this, and already he's completely. But this is just like the Artie and the hack pack thing that we covered, and it was about 3-4 different reasons he came up with why it bothered him, and he couldn't stick to one.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing was, by the way, guys, if you're curious, like he's talking about, Israeli parents, or just say what it is, Jewish parents and misery. There's a great documentary featuring a lot of Gilbert Gottfried. Check it out online. You should be able to find it quite a few places. It's called The Last Laugh. And it's all about gallows humor based on Holocaust jokes and survivors of the Holocaust and what they find funny. And some of them will watch people like Sarah Silverman doing Holocaust humor and telling you, that's not really funny, or this is really funny. And it's not that they can't laugh. They're really more interested in who's telling the best joke.
Exactly.
And it's a great documentary. It's actually quite interesting. Have you seen it?
I think I have, because one of the funniest jokes I've ever heard in my life was in that. And I think I've told you before. I won't tell it now because I've probably told it before, but it's that one Walter Matthau and his wife going to visit Auschwitz, and that they have a fight, and they don't talk to each other all day. And on the way back on the train or whatever, Walter Matthau breaks the silence and leans into his wife and said, "You ruined Auschwitz for me."
That's a great joke. One of my favorite, you talk about Jews in the business. Jack Benny was great. He was not my generation, but he was so good with the timing. And one of the most famous joke is, it was on his radio show. This guy came up to me with a gun and said to me, "Your money or your life." And after a pause, the robber said, come on, your money or your life. And Jack Benny goes, I'm thinking.
That's great.
Based on his character being a cheap ass. So,
I think
perfect.
Yeah, I think what Shuli's talking about here with the older generation loving bad news, that's universal. I mean, that is universal. There's the old Irish joke of, when you're sitting in the car with your parents near Christmas, in early December, and an ambulance goes by with the siren on, the mother will look out and just go, "Now there's someone's Christmas ruined." That's just that. That's what older people tend to think that way.
Well, there's that old expression about the Irish, like there's an Irishman step foot in the new country. I think I told you this ages ago. Steps foot in the new country and asks one of the people that live there, what kind of government do they have here? And the guy tells the Irishman what it is. He goes, "Well, whatever it is, I'm against it." Something about being a contrarian or a negative prick. There can be a lot of humor found in that, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
But now they get to say what I can talk about and what I can't.
Oh.
Or do I just Israeli it and fucking go, now I go and I don't care and I walk out, right?
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I was like, you can't, because in my mind it's like, if I want to talk about something that happened the last 15 years, and again, it goes back to how I wanted to leave, right? I was not going to leave on bad terms. I was not, he has people out there that literally have podcasts where they shit on him on a regular basis. And these are people that haven't worked for him for 25 years, right? This is all they got. And
who's he referring to that's had a podcast for 25 years?
No, what he's saying is there's people who haven't worked on the show for 25 years who have a podcast now who are trashing him. So what he's referring to there is probably either Stuttering John or Steve Grillo.
Well, it would be Grillo, but it wouldn't be Stuttering John. Grillo's the only one. And then at this point, Grillo's podcast long since vanished. He ran out of people to interview, didn't have much on his plate, and he's just released a book. And someone said, "Oh, it's Billy West." He goes, "You might want to interview him about his book." I'm like, "God bless you, Billy, but if you put 3 guns to my head, I would eat every single bullet in each gun before I interviewed Grillo for his fucking book. Nor would I read it."
No, I wouldn't be tempted myself, to be quite honest.
This is all they got. And I wasn't going to be one of those guys. My whole point in leaving was the fact that I feel like I can do something else and I can succeed because look, here's the reality. I went from calling into a show to getting a 1-week audition in New York for the show, which had nothing to do with airtime. All they brought me out for was to be a consultant.
Was that before or after you failed the Get John's Job contest, Shuli? God, I love that one. he got something like 0.1 of the vote or something like that.
Yeah, he did very badly. I remember. I must go back and revisit that. But he did his impression of
Bobcat Goldthwait. Yeah, a character people haven't heard from in about 20 years, and he decided to resurrect it. Fuck! Yeah. Wait till I do my my Valentino impression.
But it's like going to like the Budweiser ad. What's up?
Yeah. Fucking hell.
For this news team that they put together called the Howard 100 News, and it was filled with real reporters. So naturally, they didn't know anything about the show, the history of the show, the people on the show. So they flew me in like a mercenary to go into this boardroom and teach them who's who and what's what on the show. And I did that. I did that for the first day, and I pretty much shot my wad. I had nothing more to share the next day. And that's when I realized, okay, I want to stay here. I don't want to go back to Vegas. I don't want to go back to living with my parents. So what can I do to stay here? So I saw one of those handheld recorders. I grabbed it. I go out to Times Square. I walk around. Now, this was 2 months before Howard was even coming to Sirius. His deal was signed. His contract didn't end for another 2 months. So the only thing Howard-centric on the channels was the Howard 100 News. And so I went around Times Square and I started asking people questions. Are you excited about Howard coming to Sirius? And all I was really doing was crowd work.
Christ.
The street was he was like Bernie Mac doing some stand up on the subway for a bit of extra change. Dude, come on.
It's not crowd work. It's not crowd work. All you're doing is holding a microphone. You're holding a mic and asking, are you excited about Howard going to Sirius? And you're not. Crowd work kind of would make you think that you're kind of riffing off people and coming back with funny lines. And I don't think he did any of that.
No, God, no. And unless I misremember this, you had the Sirius connection. You couldn't get Sirius from over there.
No, but I had News Group. I was at the time I had paid for News Group access.
Okay, so could you get clips from pre-Howard Sirius and the news team? Yeah. And did you remember hearing any Shuli, crowd work?
No, the only things I remember were like the Howard 100 News, and I'll never forget hearing Tissue Time with Blue Iris. That was before he went on the air. That was unforgettable. Yeah.
That was they played some of it on the air, and they actually, I think, cut some of it out. Like they edited it for the air because even for them it was even too gross. Oh no, they were playing some of it. Weren't they playing some of it at K-Rock?
What they did was they beeped it all.
Yeah,
but it was when you're hearing the unfiltered version was, it was eyebrow raising to say the least.
No kidding. Fucking hell.
All I was doing is what I know as a comic, which is whatever their answer is, we're going to make it funny, or we're going to goof on them, or this is what I do. I'm not a reporter. I'm not going to uncover anything. I don't give a shit. I want to make people laugh. I want to be funny. So I bring the audio back to the news director at the time, and she listened to about 30 seconds of it. And she said, "This is fantastic. We're putting this on the air." And so now I had a crack in the door, right?
Right.
So then I learned how to edit audio on the computer because I wanted to be in control of my stories or my audio. I don't want to trust this guy to know to cut it here because this part's really funny, not here, and miss that part. So,
God, who told you had the requisite chops to edit my material?
God, this is incredible stuff. This is like, I feel I get the same physical sensations I get watching Rocky for the first time here. But I think that the funny thing is, like, when you look at Shuli's serious career, he fell out with everyone, dude.
Yep.
He fell out with everyone. He fell out with Doug Goodstein. He fell out with out with Artie. He fell out with Scott. He fell out with Richard, definitely. Mm-hmm. He also fell out with who's that guy with the long hair? The parody guy. He fell out with Cabby. Threatened to have a fight with Cabby. He also threatened. There was a few people like there was another guy. Oh, we did an episode of a Double A. Fight with him. So, I really do think that's. When he left, it was
scorched earth.
I don't think. I don't think there was a leaving bash written for him.
No, it was. Don't let that. Please let that door hit your ass on the way out.
Yes.
Well, the other thing was that was an incredibly stupid thing on Howard's part. He needed filler for the air that he wasn't there for, so hence the news team. But he actually didn't like it. It was horrendous because they kept the news team, I don't know, until 2010, 11, I guess, but they pared it down. George Flowers went away, then Penny Crone went away. Eventually, it was just like Survivor, Howard 101 News, who's going to outlast, outwit, out finance, out Shekel. And eventually it was just like Lisa G and Langford, I think. And Shuli was still on the news, but he was doing, if it was just the news, he wouldn't be on the show. He had to be the Whack Pack wrangler. And God only knows how that worked. Was it like, $50 a bit, if we put it on the air, that kind of thing? I wouldn't have been surprised if that's what it was.
Well, look, I mean, for Howard, Shuli is ideal because there's that hero worship thing that is a prerequisite for working in there in the first place. But it's also, Howard's going to just go, well, we don't really have to pay him much because he just wants to be here. Because this is as Howard always said, this is the hippest radio show on the planet.
Right.
So, so we can do what we want here, which is great. And like the content is fine. Like he's not, he's not Bill Hicks, but he's not. He'll do. So I think that was the main thing that got Shuli in the door. Is he's just like a perfect specimen for Howard, which is won't I suppose make Howard seem less witty than he is, because Howard always likes people who he can intimidate and get the better of in an argument. He never wants anyone in there if Howard thinks is anyway smarter than him. So Shuli ticks a lot of boxes, I think.
I remember I already told a story about being at a massage parlor, which was really funny, actually. It was something like, he went in the waiting room and he was around. How many people were in the waiting room? He goes, well, there were about 4 guys and we all looked like brothers. And then he told a story about it, whatever. And then Shuli came into the air. Like he clearly must have gone to Gary and said, look, I have a great massage story. You got to let me in there. And Gary said, okay, go in there. And if it sucks, they're going to eat some shit. And then he tells this story about getting his rib crushed by some overweight Asian woman, which probably is a story he heard from someone else and decided to borrow it for the purposes of getting airtime. And then Howard goes, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have come in for that story. No one laughed. I got it clipped somewhere.
I learned that. I started asking questions to the reporters about just general interviewing. How do you interview? I didn't know how to do any of that. And I just tried to absorb as much as possible. So from a 1-week audition to 15 years on the Stern Show, from starting on this news team to eventually a writer, producer, and on-air talent. And I'm sitting here going, you're telling me I can't land on my feet in Huntsville, fucking Alabama, if I did that in New York? Like, I ain't worried about it, man. If I had to go rent cars at Enterprise for the rest of my life, I have enough cool memories and awesome times where I could do that without hating life and hating myself. And luckily I don't have to do that. So I feel like I knew when we moved here that work was going to be ending for me. I didn't know at that time he hadn't re-signed, so I didn't know if he was going to walk away. I didn't know if I was going to walk away or they were going to fire me, but my heart wasn't in it.
I mean, to you guys listening, can you imagine, especially with the temperature being the way it is right now during this pandemic? I mean, I can only imagine they probably all thought you'd lost your mind. And what I'm going to say is, and I'm going to acknowledge that you did lose your mind. You got out of your mind.
Yeah, no, they still think that. And that's fine. That's fine because, I find it funny that these areas that are these areas of the country that are supposedly so inclusive and welcoming to all beings, race, sex, creed, whatever, You're all welcome here.
Shit comic.
You're talking fish, who's a priest, get in here. We love you, whatever, right? But the minute your opinion differs from their opinion, or the minute you do something that they don't necessarily understand, forget agree with, because I'm not looking for somebody to agree with what I did. I'm just looking for people to understand why I did it. And if you don't, that's on you. But it comes down to the minute you think for yourself, those people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, he's getting out of line. You know, hey, you get in line with the rest of us. What are you doing?
The day Shuli has an original thought will be the first time it happens. What the fuck is he going on about now? Like, this is he's trying to be his own best guru.
Yeah, it's funny what he's saying there, because I think what he's saying is quite interesting, because it's probably reflective of the climate at the Howard Stern show, because it does sound, what he's saying there does sound like what I would expect that working atmosphere was like. But he's only ever, how many jobs has Shuli ever had? So he's probably not great. He's probably not a great person to compare different workplaces. But I think he probably is right there in that in the Howard Stern show, as soon as you do something that either the boss doesn't like or that is known to be not standard, they do turn on you. You know, you are suddenly the runt of the litter, the black sheep, and out you go. So maybe there is a bit of, maybe that's what he's kind of silently referring to there.
Well, maybe he's just unable to really verbalize it the way as some other people have. Like Stuttering John, the last day before he left, he took a fucking boatload of abuse. But, you know, I'm sure he was fine with it based on the paycheck he was going to start getting at that point in time. Scott Einziger, Isaac, the camera guy, everybody, they all got this, you know, like dump truck of shit laid on them before they had to leave. And, you know, and no support, like no one's going after, not like the Gary dinner party when Howard leaves Gary's house to dinner early, and everybody piled on Howard, as they should have. But they wouldn't have done it if two or three of them didn't join in on it. It had to be a united front.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are you gonna go? What are you doing in Alabama? Oh, you're gonna buy a pickup truck now? You know, people were accusing me of being right wing because I'm moving to Alabama. Being and it's just like, but it's funny to me that these people are supposedly open-minded enough to welcome all and respect all, but you can't respect my decision to move to a place that betters the life for my family, and a place that you don't know shit about. Googling a place doesn't mean you know something about it. You go into a place, you experience what it's like. These people, let me tell you something. Lived in this apartment for 10 years. We knew 3 neighbors. That's it. And we're in a unit where it's small. You can't miss people. But even when you see them at the mailbox, hi. That's it.
I think that's part and parcel of being a New Yorker, actually, more than anything else, because from what I understand, everybody minds their own business. Celeb, famous person, doesn't matter. Total schlub, doesn't matter. Everybody's going about their business, going about their way, and no one's the wiser.
Yeah, I mean, look, I lived in apartments for a number of years on my own. I'm 3 or 4, and I was only there. Some of them I was only there a year. Some I was there 2 years. Don't really bother getting to know, because it's not the type of, you don't need a neighbor when you live in an apartment. It's different when you live on a street somewhere, a neighbor, because there's things you can share, and there's things you have a shared interest in how the front looks, and you might, you know, sometimes my neighbor here, he's only renting, he's a great guy, he power washed my driveway, he was doing his own, he did mine as well, and so I gave him a gift, you know, and like, so there's things like that, but that doesn't happen when you live in an apartment.
No, God, no. Unless it's a movie. I mean, it's honestly one of those stories like baking cookies for each other, that kind of thing. And it's very rare. But when you're talking houses, that's exactly, I'll shovel your driveway while I'm finished mine. You know, that same thing. That's houses are more conducive for that.
Sup? Yeah. Now, if I'm driving down any of these streets where we live now, and my tire falls off my car, it'd be a race to see how many people come out and help me, bring me in, feed me. Like, and they don't
Sounds
quite.
like you're in Italy.
Yeah, they don't quite. I feel like we moved to a different part of the world where all this bullshit didn't touch yet.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I felt like. We came out here, everybody was masked up, but shit was open.
Did you find that when you traveled through, let's say, Nashville? There was a more down to earth, very the lack of pretense, because I can't imagine any other scenario going from East Coast or West Coast to more Midwest or central, part of the states.
Well, we stayed in Nashville in an Airbnb that was adjacent to a house, and it was actually Easter Sunday, so it was nearly exactly 10 years ago, and it was Easter Sunday when we were there. And the couple who owned the house invited us down for drinks and whatever in the afternoon, and introduced all their friends. And the guy was a drummer, went down to his basement. He was a session drummer. He played. And one of their friends who called over was the drum tech for Night Ranger, the band.
Oh, yeah.
He brought us then to a bar in Nashville, if anyone knows it. It's called the Twin Kegs, and it's purely for locals. It's one of these places where you show up, the Harleys are outside and the big American flags are hanging up. You go inside and there's all the neon beer signs, and there's a blues session on in the corner. It was amazing. And everyone was really friendly. It was a bit of a novelty as well, I think, for people, because they're not used to it. We stopped in one place on the way in Louisiana, and I wasn't feeling well. I went into a Walgreens or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And when they heard my accent, the people behind the counter, this was the middle of nowhere, this place. Sure. Just found it on Google Maps. When they heard my accent, they couldn't believe it. And she brought women out from the back to hear me speak. She never heard an Irish accent in real life.
Well, I believe it.
So they were really nice people. Yeah. So, but that's the same everywhere. I remember going to London when I was 19. And I couldn't believe how cold it was, everyone on the street, because I was looking for directions at the time. This is before smartphones, and people just walked past me. Yeah. And then I went to Anfield, then I went to Liverpool that same trip. And as soon as I arrived in Liverpool, I felt, now I feel at home. You got people walking around with big bellies, and they're all friendly, and there's a sense of humor. There's a very shared sense of humor with Dublin. Liverpool is very similar to Dublin. And
working class.
Just walking around, the feel of it, they're talking to people. Yeah, it really is very similar.
Well, there's always there's an attitude that comes with living in big cities, and unfortunately, there's some cities where I don't get that. Like, I've been to Tokyo, I've been to God, I'm trying to think of the largest cities. Bangkok. I've been to haven't been to New York, but Berlin. I'm sure even there's regionalism within countries anyway.
Yeah.
But as far as I could tell, some of the larger sprawling cities don't have that. They don't look down necessarily upon people who live in smaller towns, but certain countries, it's absolutely a way of life. Like there's New York, and then there's the rest of that shit in the States. That's the way they think. New York exists, and same with Toronto. Torontonians are, I hate to say it, mostly assholes, because they think they've got this little circle, and the rest of the country doesn't exist. And it's I've never been raised to think that way. Fuck that. Well, although I guess I'm being down on Torontonians, but I've met too many assholes who were from Toronto, and they did look down. They had, like, in Greek we say psilomiti, their nose went up in the air when they went near other people. Yeah, but even Fillmore, the term flyover state, offensive in it. Of course, it tells you everything you need to know about the attitude on the coasts. Totally.
Yeah, and that's the big thing when I got out here, because the show was so revolved around COVID that it's like, as soon as I got out here, they're like, well, I'm sure everyone's walking around maskless. Why? Because the place is called Alabama. You just assume everybody's a fucking moron here. I happen to be surrounded by some of the smartest people I've ever met that work in government, that work in the military. Oh, yeah. I'm waiting for this shit to hit the fan, because I got the A-team. I got the A-team around me.
Did you tell them that you actually, Huntsville, Alabama, I mean, that's where a lot of the scientists are. The IQ is amazing. I grew up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. My father was a scientist.
Yeah.
And our grade point average was an A, in the A to A plus area. Nobody dropped out of school.
Right.
Brilliant here in the South. And guess what? We're friendly people.
Super friendly.
More or less. We're friendly people, friendly folk, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like we're in such a better situation all around. Like I said, it took them a little bit longer to adjust than me because, I got no problem. Bird, I'm out of here. That's it. But we're all adjusting now where and I just got back. I went back to New York to do a couple shows. I was out there for 2 weeks and I'm staying at a friend's apartment and I'm just like, I don't know how the hell we did this for as long as we did. I'm in his apartment. It's like you use the bathroom. It's like taking a crap in a hallway closet. It's like I go, I don't know. And other people are like, this is a great apartment. Like to them, it's really nice,
I've seen those New York tours, like of bachelor pads, where there's shared bathrooms on the same floor, and they're like these little hovel, like it's almost like a crawl space. If anybody who has what do you call it, claustrophobia, definitely not your best idea to live in the city of cubicles.
No, I wouldn't be able to handle that at all. No. Shared bathrooms as well. God, didn't high pitch Eric. He lives somewhere with a shared. Excuse me. He lives somewhere with a shared bath. I mean, can you imagine?
I'd have to napalm myself daily to clean off the stench.
You would have to bring a priest in there to bless the place before you took a shit.
Right, like that scene in Train Spotting, the dirtiest toilet in Scotland, whatever. That. Yeah, I mean that's probably cleaner than High Pitch Eric's bathroom.
Yeah.
And I'm just
perspective, dear.
And I have such perspective now, and
call it interesting point of view and access consciousness, and this whole thing about aligning and agreeing and resisting and reacting. What if we could just be an allowance of their interesting point of view? I don't like people telling me how to do or be or think.
Right.
And I don't impale my belief systems or whatever you want to call it on them. But here's the thing. This is the thing that I think we have in common. I'm willing to lose everybody.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
I don't care if it's family or friends that I've had for years or coworkers, and it's nothing against them.
Right.
It's like I don't want to impale them, or if they're suffering with what I'm about.
Interesting to you, choice of words. Is she some type of serial killer? I don't want to impale them.
Yeah, I don't think she knows what impale means.
I think does she want to say impair? I mean, does she want to say impart this knowledge?
I don't know. It's a very strange word. But again, this is the thing I was talking about in the last episode, was that there are a number of things in this access consciousness that are devices to protect yourself from criticism and to basically to look at critics of what you're doing. Like, she's very defensive here. Why is she saying, if she isn't in a cult, why is she talking like she is? Why is she talking about, well, I don't care, I'm willing to lose family members? For what? Why would you be willing to lose family members?
Well, it sounds like that's exactly what's happened in her life, and she's not willing to say that, at least not right now. Maybe in another show, or a show more specific to her. And I think he returns the favor and has her on his show at one point, and it is more about her. And I did cut some of it, but if you know anybody in your life that's been involved in a cult, I know a few, and my tendency was to run the fuck away from them, and I'm sure it's the same with her.
Yeah, definitely.
Robin got into that. I remember that was the story I heard. Robin tried to get Casey to get into Landmark Forum, and he went there in 5 minutes. He was out of there because he smelled it. He knew what it was. Yeah, I see. It takes a kind of certain people who may not exhibit kind of intellect or book smarts, but they can have very high kind of instinct and street smarts, and they can just kind of get a feeling of the scam. Yep. And she tried to do the same with Grillo and Jackie. That was that whole time when she was saying, I've been emasculating men all this time. And she based it on some other access. I keep saying access consciousness because that's what this bitch is talking about. But the Landmark Forum, this person who was based on Landmark Forum, and it's no longer, the website's no longer there. I can't remember her name, but she had audited or whatever, done this course, and then it was all that was in her head. So of course she had to bring it up on the air.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, then that's okay. I'm willing to go my own way,
Yeah, I'm not here to make anybody feel bad. It's like if it's an issue, then we should make it so it's not an issue. However, we need to do that.
Do you? I'll do me.
Yeah. Since I met my wife, that's really, she turned the negativity that I grew up in into positive. And I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know that, we're kind of, it's just this big boomerang that you're throwing it out and it's coming back to you. So if you're throwing it out with shitty intentions.
Yeah, that's interesting. Making a fucking side hustle out of fucking abusing a drunk.
It's amazing to me. It's amazing. Yeah. And this bullshit that I hear, I've been hearing this all my life, that if you put out good stuff, it'll come back to you. Yeah, that does work. If you're nice to people, right, people will remember that person. So, for example, if you're in a job, right, and you're very friendly to people and you're always helpful and you're good at what you do and a role comes up, you're probably at an advantage there. It's going to come back because people look at you and they judge you on your character and they say, well, do you know what? He's a good guy or blah, blah, blah. But this whole idea that they're just being positive somehow goes out into this ether and that the universe has a way of rewarding you for that. I mean, that's total horseshit. I mean, because look, we all know, I worked with a guy who died a few years ago and he was never said a bad word about him. He was the nicest guy on the planet. Mm-hmm. And he got cancer in his 40s and with an 8-year-old son, so, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Life is not fair. Things, and for Shuli to be bought, to buying into this horse shit, and especially given what we know what he went on to do, which is one of the grimmest, vile ways, depressing ways of making a living I can think of, apart from selling your arse. You know what I mean? Like he literally, it's people need to understand who listen to this podcast exactly, and maybe we'll cover it sometime, exactly what he's been doing for the last few years and how bad it is. Like, it's so grim. It really is.
It is. It really is. And the fact is, and I take issue with the idea that, it's no different than selling his arse. It would be more honest if he was prostituting his ass. It would be more, that's just transactional in that case. I used to as a kid look down on sex workers, but as I grew up and I realized, well, they've been around thousands of years, long before that things were written, the Bible was written. So that's always going to be something out there. And I don't think it's not something most people would want to do, but he's got a choice here to continue doing at this point in his life, to do the podcast that he claims in this interview he believes in. I'm going to have this program on, I'm going to do that. Yeah. But when he bunts, the first chance he has to bunt on this Stuttering John thing, he grabbed it with both fucking hands and feet like a fucking koala, and he took it as far as he could go, to the point now where I don't know how many people they got left on the Shuli network, like 300 people, whatever, and maybe they're giving him super chats money. At some point, it's just going to be a core group of people that for some reason have disposable income, I guess, that they feel connected somehow. And they decide to, here's $5, answer this question about Stuttering John and whatever. But ultimately it's kind of an empty pursuit.
So yes, and look, I do understand the argument that people say, well, it's funny, and the people who listen to it are laughing, and
right.
That's fine. And while I'm aware that what we do here is there's a lot of negativity as well, I would argue that it's a much broader, there's a much broader range of topics you can cover here.
Big time.
And we're not repeating the same joke over and over, and we're going after somebody who isn't really aware of it at all. What Shuli's doing is the same joke. First of all, the same joke over and over every day. Second of all, he's actually interacting with this guy and causing him a massive amount of stress, even though he deserves it. But like, you look at some of the stuff he's done, even recently, he's teasing a secret tape that he has of John, saying some abhorrent things about his own family members. And he's teasing this to sell tickets for a live show. Right. So that's what Shuli's doing. Yeah, but yet we have to sit here and be lectured by a cross between fucking Mahatma Gandhi and Tony Robbins, or whatever the fuck he is here, where he's like this way up on moral high ground. Yeah, for God's sake.
Fucking Jack the Devi. Well, the other thing is, of course, that, he, for him to talk positivity, like Shuli's not a positive fucking person. His wife didn't teach him anything. That's the other crock. I mean, honestly, just be honest with people, Shuli.
Yeah,
that's
at the
end of the day. Yeah, own it. People can get more respect if you're up front with saying, "Look, I'm a scumbag. I hang out with dirtbags, and we're making fun of a dirtbag, and it is a side hustle, and maybe I have to do other things, but I don't care." There's a certain nobility in going forward with that, as opposed to couching it in some, well, we're just we're trying to make people laugh, and we're just whatever. Okay, fair enough. You could also just tell jokes and make people laugh and sell their podcast that way.
No, but he can't do that. You see, this is the problem. He knows that it doesn't work. He has painted himself into a corner, and this is all he can do. It is humiliation stuff. But look at what he did when he was on the Howard Stern show. Yeah. What did he do on there? Did he ever tell jokes on there? When he tried, he bombed. What he did was he made fun of desperate people or people who weren't aware that they were being made fun of. Underdog lady. He used to record their conversations, cut them up, make her look like a fool and him look funny. He used to call Eric the Midget. He used to call Tan Mom. Now he's doing impressions of her. These are people who are who are not just always disturbed, but they're not playing with a full deck.
No,
that's an even match for Shuli.
He did the same to the news team. He recorded them surreptitiously, then played it on the air after they talked shit about Robin and about Howard and about certain other people. And, he did this with glee. It wasn't like, that we found this tape and Shuli doesn't know we did this and, he wasn't in on it. He directed it. He made it a point to fuck his own.
He went to Ronnie's block party. Ronnie put on a party, laid on free drink and food for people, invited people from the show. Shuli went with a recorder, waited for Ronnie to get drunk, and then secretly recorded him and brought it straight in on the show.
Yep.
So that's all he's able to do. Like that's what he does.
Right.
And fear and anger, that's the world that's coming back to you. And so, she.
Well, your point of view creates your reality.
Right.
Your reality does not create your point of view. So
I tell my kids all the time, man, it's take it from me. I was terrible in school. But one thing I never lost focus of is what I'm going to be doing down the road. When I pictured something that I wanted, when inside I felt, okay, one day I'm like, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. It didn't go to like,
one day I'm going to fail at stand-up comedy, guys. I promise you. Yeah. I will sell 0 tickets and I'm going to make that happen.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find a guy with close to death from heart disease and who's an alcoholic and who's more desperate for money than me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make fun of him every day with the same joke over and over for almost 3 years.
And one day there's going to be a duck, the sole ticket buyer at one of my conventions.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to me here is that Shuli says he's a great poker player and, but I mean, this Rudrani Devi is blowing so much hot smoke up his ass. I think he's even more pompous than usual here. It's an extra gear he's found.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, it is like if he ever was face to face with someone who would call him on his actual shit, the only thing he could do is shout them down, pot them down, perhaps physically, do something like the best defense as a good offense. But it would be empty. It would be pointless. The one time he recorded something with John, he shouted him down, of course, but John made a bunch of salient points, even as a wet-brained mushmouth asshole. And Shuli had nothing to come back at him. Yeah. Shuli was looking. You could see him at different points, looking at off the camera, kind of going, "I have nothing," and I'm getting pantsed right here.
Yeah,
yeah.
I hope one day. I hate the word hope so much. I really do. I think it's such a crutch.
It's an excuse, in my opinion.
I think I always say hope is for suckers. I go belief should be replaced by hope. Belief is everything. And I tell my kids.
Not belief, delusion. Let's get it straight. Come on.
Everything I'm doing, I saw it and I believed in it. And if you do those two things, you will eventually achieve it. So that's my thing with them. See it, believe it, achieve it.
One day I will weigh a fat retard's shit.
But you see, I just know already that the way that Shuli will twist this, you know, if you were to talk now, he will say, well, you know, what I saw and achieved was being able to do comedy and working from home. So that's essentially what he is doing. And he's working from home and I don't know how much he's making out of it. I know Bob Levy has left.
Yeah.
Bob Levy, shock horror, is struggling on his own, but it's a bit like I don't know, it's a bit like the members of Queen, you know, when you split them up, they're not as strong.
What, you don't think Back to the Light was a big sale? It was a big ticket item.
Dog shit.
What was that one? What was the Roger Taylor album called? Do you remember?
You'd one called Happiness. That was poor. They were all terrible, really terrible, really bad.
Shuli should have been like John Deacon, the one member who shut the fuck up, took his money, and left.
Yeah, because she didn't have any money. I mean, that's what it just all comes back to money. Comes back to money. Yeah. And that's why Shuli's doing this. It's all about money. It's not about being creatively fulfilled and following through on your dreams or any of that horse shit.
Chasing happiness.
About money. Yeah, bollocks.
That's it, man. That's the trifecta. That's everything that's happened for me in my life, for my career, finding my wife. All of it is stuff that I saw in my mind that I believed in.
You're a futurist, you know?
I tell my wife that all the time.
Oh, Christ almighty, that was good. Fuck, that's funnier than anything Shuli said in the last 40 minutes.
That's great. A futurist. This is another made-up word that she's come up with that I know it's a word, but she'll have her own definition of what it is, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't shut up. I go, leave me alone. I'm a futurist.
You do?
No, I don't.
Futurist? No. Anyway.
You think I'd ever say shut up to my wife? She'd fucking choke me out. I'd wake up.
Saying, you guys, his wife is so hot. It's, not saying anything against you.
That's fine. About time somebody said it other than me.
I just realized that.
Yeah, what she's trying to say is Shuli is punching way out of his weight class.
Yeah.
That's the not so nice way to say. You mean someone fucked you and you didn't pay for it?
Now, I understand your husband is a very successful comedian. My husband is a comedian.
He has known comedians in his life. He's palled around with them. He's dabbled, as they say. Like this guy really is the dabbler. The one thing I was thinking of, if in school they must have it at some point during elementary school, or some year where they ask the kids, "What does your father do?" And what must Shuli's kids say? Well, like, would you really have the balls to say, "My father's a stand-up comic"?
Yeah, it's a very well. You'd say, my father is the CEO of a hugely successful network.
It's like those kids that paint rocks gold and say, "Look, I'm selling minerals."
Yeah, and they say, "Well, what is it?" It's called the Shuli Network, and the teacher that evening goes onto YouTube and has a look, and as they go on, they see a freeze frame of John dribbling and them laughing at the dribble, going, "Look at the stains on his jumper. Look at the."
Hold on, let me just for that, because I did say this time we're going to show some of his fucking stand-up. So let me find that one Shuli Asian girlfriend. Let's see. I think that's the one. Where is it? No, hold on. Shuli stand-up. It's on the Reddit. Actually, let me find it on Reddit because they're right up there. Someone did the work. Okay, where do we go? Shuli's Anonymous. It was one of the worst fucking impressions I've ever seen in my life. Everything about it was racist, not funny. Like, people are barely laughing. Where is it? Come on. Someone posted this. We'll give this out to Chico Ruizing, the OG Shuli hater. 3 days ago, he posted this on Reddit. Paying dues, Asian girlfriend, comedy, in brackets, just in case you didn't know.
We're living in a shitty one-bedroom apartment, and she'd come in talking all this crazy shit, you know?
And with him with that spray-on stubble, that's fantastic. That look, fucking hell.
What were you doing? You know how the Asians are, right? She was really loud. First, she banged the gong. That was the rule around here. What were you doing if I was in a horseback riding accident?
Oh my God.
Okay, this is something you find that was this Andy Rooney. I think it was Mickey Rooney did in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
God, he makes Jackie Martling look like Stuart Lee or something here. Like this is really bad. So.
Yeah, it is.
And I was in wheelchair. What would you do? Well, it just sounds like I've been doing the laundry, Lisa Lane. You want to quiet down for 2 seconds? Christ. I got the game and a buzz. Guess who's fucking both of those up right now? You are, honey. I was with her 11 years. I'm not a dick. I would have built her a ramp. I'm not an asshole. That's plywood. That's 10 minutes. I could do that. Are you doing something far from tar building? He's being head and I retarded. Twice? How's that going to happen again, you fucking
Quiet at the end.
The end of it. Subscribe to Shuli's Anonymous, and there's a duck. See, now that's a person has their pulse on comedy. Fuck. Everything about that was, God, that Shulogy might just be like his fucking Sandinista then, I suppose. I don't know. His Abbey Road. I don't know. Yeah. One side placates. Anyway, we'll keep going, guys. A little bit more.
I vomited that out so quickly, but
I found the one really, really smoking hot woman who actually digs a guy with a sense of humor. The rest of them are all lying about that. But,
yes.
But I found the one that really does. So sorry.
Who's the guy?
The market.
And she's as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside, and she's real, which is what I love about both of you. Yeah. So here's the thing: this podcast, how did it get created? Because did the job go and then the podcast happen, or did you start the podcast? Or Mr. Futurist Man, what was it that actually? What came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know.
Well, so this I don't know, maybe like 8 years ago, 7 years ago. I started working while I was doing the Stern Show. I started working on Fridays. Howard would be off. And the program director at the time brought in a guy who had a show on another channel by the name of Jay Thomas. And Jay Thomas is an actor. He's been in Cheers.
Much like Shuli. Just Google him. Poor Jay. God bless his soul. He was funny, though. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Murphy Brown, Mr. Holland's Opus. If you saw a picture of him, you'd recognize him in 2 seconds.
I'm gonna look him up.
So Jay started as a radio guy. And I remember as a kid being driven to school in LA, listening to Jay Thomas on the radio before Howard came to LA. So I was familiar with Jay's work on TV, on radio. And he saw me performing at a club in New York one night. And he asked me after my set, would you ever want to sit in on my show he's called the ha-ha chair. And I was like, I was starving for airtime. I said, absolutely, I'm there.
Twist my arm.
Yeah. And so the first time I ever worked with him, he comes up to me before we go on the air and he goes, listen to me. I know you come from that Stern world over there. I don't want you going on air and saying the word pussy, okay? I want you to think of a joke that makes everybody listening think of the word pussy. You understand? And I was like, okay, I got it. And that moment I was like,
what Jay was basically saying to you, asshole, was that you're not on a stupid show anymore. You're actually on a show where the host has a brain and wants his audience entertained by thoughts and ideas, not gay porn stars and prettiest penis contests.
And it's interesting because I do recall hearing Shuli on Jay Thomas. This is years ago because I used to listen to Jay, and I hope someone listening to this remembers. There was an occasion where Shuli made some reference to skin color or something, and Jay called him out on the air. Said, "We don't do that here. What are you talking about?" Like, called him out. It was awkward. I'd love to be able to find it, but it did happen. It was only about 10 seconds worth, but I remember hearing it going, "Ooh, shit!" But it definitely happened.
Oh, so he got slapped down on the air, basically.
Yeah. So Shuli said something on Jay's show, and Jay called him on it and said, "No, we don't know what you're talking about." That, like, as if to say, shut him down.
Would there be any of Jay's archives on the Usenet?
No, I don't know. My account has lapsed, but
okay,
you'd never find it. But I 100% remember hearing it.
I'd happily listen to it for a year to find it.
Yeah.
It's got to be in there somewhere.
This guy is as much of a pro as Howard. He's an original like Howard. He just does a different show. He just does it differently. And I worked with him for about 7-8 years. Every Friday we did a show together. I'd jump in on his afternoon show from time to time. Loved it. Learned so much from this guy. He really, probably without a doubt, gave me the most airtime at Sirius to learn how to do radio was with him.
Y'all still friends?
Well, no, sadly he got cancer, and about 3 years ago he passed away. But he said to me, listen, this was like his last week that he was with us. And he said, tomorrow I need you to set aside 60 to 90 minutes. He says, I want to talk to you. Get a notepad. And he said, I need you to write stuff down. I said, okay.
Wow.
So he calls me, and I just let him talk. Yeah, because I was bawling. I couldn't say anything anyways. And I just let him talk. And first thing he said is, he goes, you have to get away from this job. You have to get away from this show. He says, you can do this. You're talented enough. Start taking acting classes. He's like, I'm telling you, you don't need it. You're better than this. And this is what you need to do. And then he went down the list of everybody else that worked on that show with him and had me, write down what they need to be doing in the future, what they need to be focusing on. I just remember sitting there thinking, like, this guy's about to die.
Yeah.
Right. And like,
he's still mentoring you. I mean,
and all he gives a shit about is me and the people that were, because he did the show while he was sick with cancer. He didn't announce to anybody that he had cancer.
As opposed to Howard, who had fake fucking cancer and decided that's what he's going to go on a fucking press tour advertising. Oh, it wasn't. It was a spot. I'm like, it was just a spot. Fuck you. Should have been colon. Should have been every type of cancer racking Howard's asshole, mouth, brain, everything. Fuck him. I don't wish that on people, I suppose, but there's certain people that if they got it, you wouldn't cry one bit. You might applaud, actually. You didn't give them cancer; they just happened to get it, and you're really happy for them. What up with that? What is that opposite of that flesh-eating disease joke? With what do they say? Rosie O'Donnell got the flesh-eating disease. They've given her a month. If Howard's had brain cancer, the brain cancer would starve. Anyway, Jay Thomas, it's an amazing story because and he's told something similar to that before. Jay was a mensch. He always was. Yeah. And he actually cared. I mean, he reconciled with one of his children he gave up for adoption before he passed away. That he didn't know. Like he actually, I don't know if he was put up for adoption or the mother put him up for adoption, and he found out that he had sired this kid who became like a songwriter for country music artists, a successful one at that.
It's incredible. I never knew that. That's amazing.
Yep. Amazing guy.
Huh.
Like, he was a pro's pro. Like, this guy, he was like, it's not going to get in the way of doing the show. It's not going to get in the way of entertaining somebody that's got to drive a truck across the country that listens every day.
Huh.
He always put everything and everyone else first. And so he passes away. And that conversation has never left my soul. It's never left my ears. It's when, because I continued to work for 4 more years.
Right.
And every time something would happen where I would be pissed at management or they'd be pissed at me, I just hear him on the phone in my head going, you got to get the fuck away. You got to do your own thing. And it's not that I used to think I didn't have the courage or the balls to do it at the time.
You didn't. That's the truth. Yeah. There's no getting around that, dude.
Yeah.
You clearly were forced out the door, as we said in a previous episode. And again, that's the thing that bothers me. One of the things that bothers me at this fucking interview, just transparency, dude. Be honest.
Yeah.
We'll have way more respect for you.
Yeah.
But it just, one thing I've learned from my wife is that everything happens when it's supposed to happen. Everything happens. You can't force something, and you'll know. And since I left the job, I don't hear that conversation anymore. Not that part, anyways.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
again, following your knowing, it's going to make you. It's like following your knowing to me is whatever makes me feel lighter. That's the direction I go in. It's like if I'm in a conversation with somebody and I feel my body kind of contracting. I'm like, okay, I need to get out of this conversation.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. But if, I'm talking to someone and my body gets excited, it's like, okay, this is somebody I might be able to co-create with, or.
So I might be able to grift this person.
Yeah. I might get $600 from. I mean, like
for reading
following your knowing. Yeah. Following your knowing, right, is basically, well, this is what this guy does, Douglas, in Access Consciousness, is just take little bits here and there from either sayings or psychology or mysticism or anything and just repackage them. So you have a phrase like trust your gut, right? Oh, that's a good one. So I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna call it following my knowing. That's so, and I'm gonna put there's a little TM beside that so you can't use it anywhere else.
Yeah. A fool and his money are soon parted. Let's make that an idiot and his money are soon bereft of each other.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Christ's sake, grift knows grift. And the funny thing is, what you're talking about is almost it's exact parallel to what Howard would do with different DJs, taking Butt Bongo Fiesta, taking Fart Man from National Lampoon, and making this whole other persona, taking clothing from Dee Snider and facial hair and all this other bullshit and glasses and trying to look like a rocker when he's just this Long Island schnook. Love it.
Who knows what it is? But it's it's all energy. It's that following your knowing. And so the podcast came out of.
Well, so the reality is when I worked at Sirius, I not only worked for the Stern Show, I would do Jay Thomas's show. I would get a hotel room at this place next door to Sirius that we used to call a Crack Inn because a lot of crackheads stayed there. But I would get a room there for the night to stay and do Scott Farrell's sports show. Another guy that worked up at Sirius that was like, hey man, if you want to jump on, jump. So my thing was like, if you screwed up enough to let me in the door, I was gonna take advantage of that and try to add to any show that I was on. Because
what I will do is barnacle myself to any live mic out there.
And it's amazing all this exposure he had.
Yeah.
And yet he couldn't garner 60, like the numbers were unbelievably low for his at this time. Like right at this time.
Yep.
So there's some serious cognitive dissonance present here with Shuli.
Yeah, and I think it, like I said it before with Johnny Carson, it was likability, the lack thereof.
Yeah.
At some point, Stuttering John had a sort of likability factor that long since gone. Shuli never once had a likability factor on him. Never. No. Not to the best of my knowledge. Not as a listener. Not when he was calling in. I never liked him when he was calling in. When he tried out for John's job, again, people hated him. Howard, I have a clip of him saying, I think it's in one of the intros, what is it about you? Every time you call in, people say, get him off the fucking air.
Yeah.
It's just, and some people have it and some people don't.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I felt like in my mind, I can add to whatever you throw me. I can adapt and make it a good appearance or make it a good bit or whatever it is we're doing. And each of these guys taught me different things. Watching Howard interview people was amazing. Scott Farrell, the sports guy, 90% of the stuff other than the scores and guests was all off the top, was all just, it was almost like the Groundlings or Second City, but on radio for a sports guy. It was unbelievable. And then Jay was like, Jay could get the phone lines lit up by just saying one thing, like he knew how to get to people. He knew how to do good cop, bad cop, because he would book a lot of guests that were just like really weird people. Like, we once interviewed a guy who built a replica stagecoach in his garage out of toothpicks. Like those are the type of guests that Jay would interview him as if he's super fascinated by this and is really interested in it. Oh. And I would be the bad cop who would just throw in a joke or two. And so all these three people were so instrumental for me for broadcasting. And I learned from each of them different things.
What did you learn specifically? Failure? Fucking hell. I learned. he's got a graduate degree in fucking failure. Anyway, look, it's not to take away from the fact that he glommed onto a good thing with this. Who are these podcasts? And for a while there, I'm sure he was paying more than his bills with the stuff that was coming in. But that well's run dry. John's not podcasting anymore. He may be coming back, and now Shuli's kind of left going over old shit again and again. And clearly, like even on the Shuli Anonymous page, the numbers aren't what they used to be. So trends don't lie, as I mentioned with the metric on YouTube for Stern versus just about any other channel, that's got a regular following. Bill Murray was just recently on Rogan, and within a day or two, the interview got 2 million hits. I think the full interview.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah. Well, there's a huge platform, but also Bill Murray doesn't tend to do interviews very often, so.
Yeah, that's a get. At any rate, guys, that's so much of we're going to ruling to fucking put up with because my brain cells have now diminished. If I drank a fifth Jack, it would be probably less detrimental for my brain cells than this fucking hack listening to him. Any closing thoughts and any dedication based on this episode?
Based on this episode, dedication, maybe Oblivious by Ask That Camera.
Okay, that sounds perfect. I'll throw that in, and that goes in the playlist. Anybody who's curious on our Patreon, if you're already on Patreon, you know it. But Kayla put together a podcast on Spotify as close to what we have on this dedications. She's collected them all, did the yeoman's work doing it. So God bless you, Kayla, for doing it. Thank you. And it's actually a great playlist when you put them all together. It didn't occur to me until after the fact, and it's only going to get better and bigger.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We love you. And on behalf of everybody at QF, take care. See you in the next one.
Thanks, folks.
Johnny was going to call in with the...
Later, man. Good. Thanks for calling.
All right, Art.
Announcement.
Take care, buddy.
He sprained his ankle.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Hey, Eric, I got to run along.
Take care, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Oh, wait.
Go fuck yourself.
Anyone looking to go to any concerts this summer?
No.
Check out. Get pre-sale.
No one wants to go. We'll see you, buddy. Bye.
Hank, you're on the air.
Hey now, Howard. Howard.